You need to hear this if you're a global citizen concerned about human rights. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more in-depth analyses. Singapore, a small island nation, a global financial hub, known for its impressive skyline and bustling economy, it stands as a beacon of modernity and progress in Southeast Asia. Known for its order and safety. The streets are clean, the neighbourhoods orderly, and the citizens abide by a strict code of conduct. This reputation comes at a price: strict laws and uncompromising enforcement. The government maintains a vigilant eye on public behaviour, ensuring that the rules are followed to the letter. At the heart of this system lies the Misuse of Drugs Act, or MDA. This piece of legislation is a cornerstone of Singapore's legal framework. Enacted in 1973, it outlines a zero-tolerance approach to drug offences. The MDA was introduced during a time when the nation was grappling with the challenges of drug abuse. The MDA lists controlled substances and sets harsh penalties for possession, consumption and trafficking. It is a comprehensive document that leaves little room for ambiguity. Penalties under the MDA are severe. The law is designed to act as a strong deterrent against drug-related activities. Even minor offences can lead to imprisonment. The message is clear: drug offences will not be tolerated. Drug trafficking carries mandatory minimum sentences, including life in prison. The stakes are high for those who choose to engage in such activities. The most controversial aspect is its capital punishment provision. This has been a point of contention both domestically and internationally. The death penalty can be imposed for certain drug offences, usually involving large quantities. This ultimate penalty underscores the seriousness with which Singapore views drug crimes. The MDA has drawn praise for curbing drug use, but also condemnation from international organisations. Supporters argue that it has been effective in maintaining public safety. Critics argue the law is overly harsh and violates fundamental rights. They believe that the penalties are disproportionate to the crimes. The debate reflects differing views on crime, punishment, and the role of the state. It is a complex issue with no easy answers, highlighting the balance between security and human rights.
The death penalty in Singapore for drug offences is tightly controlled, governed by the MDA and subject to strict judicial oversight. The process begins with an arrest. Possession of a certain amount of drugs triggers a presumption of trafficking. This shifts the burden of proof onto the accused. The suspect faces trial, and the prosecution must prove trafficking beyond a reasonable doubt. The MDA specifies thresholds that mandate the death penalty. For example, trafficking more than 15 grams of heroin carries a mandatory death sentence. If found guilty, the accused can appeal. The President of Singapore has the power to grant clemency, though it is rare. The death penalty, when carried out, is by hanging. Singapore's use of the death penalty for drug offences has drawn sharp criticism. Amnesty International argues it violates the right to life. They condemn its use as cruel, inhumane, and degrading. Human Rights Watch highlights the mandatory nature of the death penalty. They argue it removes judicial discretion and can lead to unjust sentences. The UNODC calls for a move away from the death penalty globally. They argue there is no evidence it deters drug trafficking. The European Union has repeatedly called on Singapore to abolish the death penalty. They see it as incompatible with human dignity. Concerns about the fairness of trials under the MDA persist. Critics highlight the lack of transparency in the application of the death penalty.
Singapore's government defends its use of the death penalty for drug offenses. They argue it is a necessary tool to protect the nation from drugs. It sends a strong message that drug trafficking will not be tolerated. Authorities cite low drug use rates as evidence of its effectiveness. They believe the death penalty has created a strong deterrent effect. The government highlights Singapore's vulnerabilities as a small island nation. They argue a strong deterrent is necessary to prevent becoming a drug hub. Public support for the death penalty is high. Polls show consistent support for capital punishment for drug offenses. The government argues this reflects Singaporean values of order and security.
Numbers tell a story. Drug statistics and the Singaporean context. In this chapter, we delve into the intricate details of drug statistics within Singapore, a nation known for its stringent drug policies and low rates of drug abuse. Singapore boasts one of the lowest rates of drug abuse globally. This is a remarkable achievement, considering the global challenges in combating drug addiction and abuse. Government data shows a small percentage of the population reporting drug use. This data is often highlighted in official reports and press conferences, showcasing the effectiveness of Singapore's drug policies. This is attributed to stringent measures under the MDA, including severe penalties for drug trafficking and consumption. The Misuse of Drugs Act, MDA, is a cornerstone of Singapore's approach to drug control. Critics argue low drug use rates cannot be solely attributed to the death penalty. They suggest that other factors play a significant role in maintaining these low rates. They point to factors like a strong economy and effective social support systems. These elements create a stable environment that discourages drug use and supports those at risk. Focusing solely on drug use statistics provides an incomplete picture. It's essential to consider the broader social and economic context to understand the full story. The government's emphasis on punishment may mask underlying issues. While strict laws deter drug use, they may also overlook the root causes of addiction. These include social and economic factors contributing to drug addiction. Issues such as poverty, lack of education, and mental health problems can drive individuals towards drug use. Critics advocate for a holistic approach addressing root causes. They argue that comprehensive social programs and rehabilitation efforts are crucial for long-term success. The debate over the death penalty's role in low drug use rates remains contentious. As Singapore continues to navigate this complex issue, the conversation around drug policies and their effectiveness is far from over.
Section 6 Lives Lost, Lessons Learned, Real-Life Cases and the Human Cost. The human cost of Singapore's war on drugs is undeniable. The impact on families and communities is profound and often heartbreaking. The death penalty has claimed many lives, leaving a trail of sorrow and loss. Each case is a story of a life cut short and a family left grieving. The pain and suffering extend far beyond the individual executed. One such case is Van Tuong Nguyen, executed in 2005 for trafficking heroin. His story is a poignant reminder of the severe consequences of drug trafficking laws. His case drew international attention and pleas for clemency. Despite the global outcry, the execution proceeded, highlighting the rigidity of the law. Another case is Yong Hui Kong, sentenced to death in 2009 for trafficking heroin. He was just 19 years old at the time of his arrest. His case sparked a national debate about the mandatory death penalty for young offenders. The public and legal experts questioned the fairness and morality of such harsh punishment for someone so young. After over a decade on death row, his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment in 2013. This decision was seen as a significant shift in the judicial approach to drug-related offences. These cases highlight the human faces behind the statistics. They remind us that behind every execution is a person with a story, a family and a future that was cut short. They fuel the debate about the morality and effectiveness of capital punishment. The ongoing discussions continue to shape public opinion and influence policy changes.
Section 7. The weight of a life, moral and ethical considerations. The death penalty raises profound moral and ethical questions. Opponents argue taking a life for a non-violent crime is never justified. They believe every human life has inherent dignity. The principle of proportionality is often cited. Critics argue the punishment should fit the crime. The finality of the death penalty raises concerns about wrongful convictions. No legal system is infallible, and the death penalty cannot be reversed. The moral arguments center around the belief that all human life is sacred. They emphasize the need for a justice system prioritizing rehabilitation over retribution. Section 8. A global perspective. Comparing Singapore's approach to other nations. Singapore's use of the death penalty contrasts with the global trend toward abolition. Most developed nations have abolished capital punishment for all crimes. The European Union requires abolition for membership. Many countries have moved away from the death penalty for drug offenses. They opt for life imprisonment or lengthy prison terms with rehabilitation. This shift reflects a growing consensus that the death penalty is inhumane. Some countries, particularly in Asia and the Middle East, continue its use. They cite the deterrent effect and the need to protect citizens. Singapore's approach remains an outlier on the global stage.
Section 9, Seeking Alternatives. Rehabilitation, prevention, and a holistic approach. There is a growing movement advocating for alternative approaches to drug offenses. These prioritize rehabilitation, prevention, and a holistic understanding of addiction. Rehabilitation programs treat drug addiction as a health issue. They provide counseling, therapy, and vocational training. Prevention programs aim to stop drug abuse before it starts. They target young people and focus on education. A holistic approach addresses the root causes of drug abuse. It combines prevention, treatment, and social support. This approach aims for a more compassionate and effective response.
Section 10. The debate continues. A balanced reflection on the death penalty's place in Singapore. The death penalty for drug offences remains a divisive issue. The government's stance draws both praise and condemnation. Supporters point to low drug use rates and deterrent effects. Critics argue it is cruel and violates human rights. The debate is complex with valid arguments on both sides. It raises questions about the role of the state and the value of human life. Singapore must balance law and order with human rights. The death penalty should be used sparingly, if at all. The debate reflects our values, priorities, and humanity.